glossing over infidelity, surviving the CIA, and watching the deaths of his would-be assassins. Even though it tried to cover everything in the legendary musician's life, here are things Bob Marley One Love left out of the true story. Though it is by design, it is impossible to ignore that Bob Marley One Love effectively skips over the entirety of Bob Marley's early career in Jamaica. The movie immediately plops audiences into Marley's life after already achieving massive fame in his home country. Though he had yet to become a household name globally, those unfamiliar with Marley's coming of age will not be able to appreciate the musician's extraordinary rise from impoverished street fighter to Jamaica's leading musical talent. Marley cultivated a love for music growing up in the Kingston neighborhood of Trenchtown in the early 1960s. Though he had garnered a reputation as a fierce fighter, he was also a talented singer and songwriter. Following a welding accident that left a steel splinter in his eye, Marley decided to ditch manual work and focus on his music career. He co-founded vocal trio The Wailing Wailers, later shortened to The Wailers, with friends Bunny Wailer and Peter Tosh, who first garnered success with their 1965 song Simmer Down.
Simmer Down went straight into the #1 position, and The Wailers were launched.
The group produced 3 albums together before splitting in 1974, with Wailer and Tosh citing unfair pay distribution and favoritism toward Marley. Aside from a brief flashback and a quick name drop, Wailer and Tosh are excised from the film's events. This was most likely done to avoid portraying Marley in a negative light, something One Love does frequently. In an early scene of the film, Bob Marley comforts 2 of his children when they express concern over Jamaica's growing violence by coming up with a silly song. Fans will immediately recognize it as the chorus to 3 Little Birds, one of the most popular tracks off the album Exodus. The scene would imply that this is how Marley conceived the song, but real-life testimony suggests this isn't the whole story. In Vivian Goldman's book, The Book of Exodus, which chronicles the creation of the album, Marley says he came up with the idea after witnessing 3 literal little birds come to the windowsill of his home in Kingston. It was a positive sight against the backdrop of his home country enduring a civil war, which inspired him to write a song about how the little things in life will get you through even the most difficult times. Bob Marley One Love uses Bob Marley's attempted assassination as the inciting incident for its plot. Hours before his planned performance at the Smile Jamaica concert, in hopes of promoting peace within his divided nation, Marley and others are shot inside their Kingston home by 3 gunmen. Nobody is killed. However, Marley and others are wounded. Shaken by the incident, he is pressured to relocate to England. The film doesn't identify anyone in the wake of the incident. However, multiple testimonies claim that the perpetrators were an assortment of Jamaican gang members hired by the CIA. During the 1970s, the intelligence agency closely monitored People's National Party candidate Michael Manley, a democratic socialist who was accommodating to the Cuban government amidst the Cold War. The CIA teamed up with the PNP's opposing party, the Jamaica Labour Party, to suppress Manley's campaign under the guise of terrorist violence. Marley had previously supported Manley in 1972, which made him a target.
Music was his weapon. Music was his M16. His guitar was his weapon.
Using the 1976 peace concert as a believable political motive, the CIA hired JLP enforcer Carl Mitchell to lead a group of gunmen on a mission to assassinate Marley in exchange for weapons and cocaine. They were unsuccessful, but the lack of any reference to the CIA in the film downplays Marley's political power in a film that claims to be inspired by it. When Marley arrives in England during the events of Bob Marley One Love, he is walking the streets of Chelsea when he is arrested and spends the night in prison. This scene is based on true events. However, the implied reasoning is the systemic racial bias within the English policing system. The film coincidentally leaves out that Marley was specifically arrested for possession of cannabis. In real life, Marley and bandmate Aston family man Barrett were being driven down West London in 1977 when they were stopped by police. No traffic violation had been committed. The officers likely knew of Marley's marijuana use, which had been public knowledge as early as 1975. The police found 2 joints and arrested Marley, but thankfully Marley and Barrett were ultimately only fined £50 each. In the film, Marley is seen pipe-smoking cannabis around a campfire with fellow Rastas. Marley was open about his frequent use of cannabis and his support for cannabis legalization. This is all but erased from his brief arrest, another measure made by the Marley estate to keep Bob's image squeaky clean. Married in 1966, Bob and Rita Marley held strong through many challenges up until Marley's death in 1981. However, for those in the know, the biopic almost entirely omits their greatest challenge, Bob's chronic infidelity. This is most glaring in one of the film's quieter, more romantic scenes. Bob plays an early, acoustic version of Turn the Lights Down Low for Rita, who is touched. In reality, when the song was introduced to Rita, she initially refused to sing it after learning it was written about Marley's then lover, Cindy Breakspear. Cindy Breakspear was a jazz vocalist who befriended Marley during the production of Exodus. They soon began an extramarital romance that became tabloid fodder after Breakspear was crowned Miss World in 1976. This upset Rita, still Bob's wife and a member of his backup trio, I3, who was forced to accept his polyamorous lifestyle. Marley's other partners included, but were not limited to, politician Pascaline Bongo and photographer-filmmaker Esther Anderson. Aside from a single line of dialogue in the film, none of Bob's additional partners are acknowledged. This is likely because Rita herself is a producer on the film and did not wish to reenact what were clearly painful memories. One of the most entertaining scenes in One Love is dedicated to the inception of the title track of Exodus. Many of the details in the scene are true, but a key component in the mixture is missing, a byproduct of the film's depoliticization of Marley's legacy in songwriting. During the album's production, People's National Party candidate Michael Manley was campaigning for re-election across Jamaica. His campaign slogan was, quote, "We know where we're going," which Marley included in the lyrics of Exodus. Though Marley never confirmed he lifted the phrase from Manley, many believe the song is a direct response to the political machine. In the song's lyrics, Marley spiritually reclaims the phrase as Rastafarian mantra. The song expresses Marley's long-held dream to return to Africa. During a heated argument in the film, Rita Marley insists she had been given offers to record her own music, but gave them up to help spread Bob's message on tour. This is partially true, as the real Rita would only officially release her first solo albums toward the end of the touring years. However, the film does not mention that she was writing, promoting, and recording songs before this time, and more specifically, that Bob was not initially supportive. German record label Hansa Music contacted Rita in the late 70s to produce a solo record. After years of singing backup for Bob, Rita saw this as her moment to finally step into the spotlight and chart her own path. Bob, however, wanted Rita to sing exclusively with the Wailers and had become possessive. In Rita's memoir, No Woman, No Cry, she recalls a time Bob got so heated that he chased a publicist away, writing, "I think he was a little bit crazy with jealousy at that point. It was a devastating experience, and I was furious and ashamed." Eventually, Bob came to terms with Rita's decision, and her album, Who Feels It Knows It, was released in 1981. Well into Bob Marley One Love, the musician is left with a toe injury following a soccer match. The film considerably downplays the severity of the injury the moment it happened. According to biographer Timothy White in his book Catch a Fire, The Life of Bob Marley, the entire toenail came off. However, what both the film and reality share is that Marley ignored getting his toe treated and was eventually diagnosed with acrolitiginous melanoma, a rare form of skin cancer that often begins under nail beds. Doctors advised Marley to amputate his toe, which he refused to do. This is mentioned in the film, but what isn't mentioned is that Marley did eventually undergo a less intensive surgery in 1977, during which the infected nail bed was removed in an attempt to stop the cancer from spreading. This proved to be effective, but only for a few short years. By 1981, the cancer had found a way to continue spreading throughout his body.
Lungs, brain, like all over the place. And it's incredible that he was able to keep working.
Marley eventually had to go through radiation therapy, which left him without his trademark dreads. Marley passed away from complications caused by the melanoma. One of the film's final scenes sees Bob Marley confront and ultimately forgive one of the gunmen who attempted to assassinate him. There is no record of this confrontation in real life, but it does directly contradict what we do know about the aftermath of the attempted assassination. In his tell-all memoir, Marley and Me, The Real Bob Marley Story, the musician's former manager, Don Taylor, claims that he and Marley were taken to a remote area in Kingston, Jamaica, and put face-to-face with 3 of the suspected gunmen. They had been captured by Jamaica Labour Party gang leader Claude Massett, who was close with Marley. The gunmen corroborated long-held suspicions that the CIA had pressured them into committing the crime and proceeded to beg for forgiveness. Unfortunately, it was not enough to absolve them. In the name of justice, 2 of them were hanged, and the 3rd was shot in the head. As Taylor writes, "The grisly events of that day are still vivid in my memory. Bob and I never mentioned that day again." One of the recurring motifs in Bob Marley One Love is a dream sequence that slowly unravels every time it reappears in the film, ultimately resulting in Marley riding off on horseback with an African man. For casual viewers, this is a confusing culmination that is given no explanation. This is meant to be Haile Selassie, former emperor of Ethiopia and the proclaimed Messiah in Rastafarian doctrine. As conveyed through one of the film's flashbacks, Marley's father was a white colonial farmer who, after marrying Marley's black mother, abandoned the family. Born as a controversially mixed child and left without a father, Marley would later be embraced by Kingston's Rasta community after marrying Rita.
One of the early slogans of Rasta was, "Your mother forsake your father, forsake your Rasta will take you."
One Love concludes at the One Love Peace Concert in 1978, leaving Bob Marley's final years to a series of interstitials and select archival clips. However, Marley's career in music continued beyond the concert in many ways. Despite the film's focus on the production and success of Exodus, 1978 also saw the release of the chart-topping album Kaya. In fact, the album was actually released a month before the aforementioned concert and included one of Marley's biggest hits, Is This Love?, which is featured in the film's end credits. 3 more studio albums were released in the following years: Survival in 1979, Uprising in 1980, and Confrontation in 1983, the latter of which was released posthumously after Marley's death in 1981. The film pays tribute to Uprising in one scene, but another one of Marley's biggest hits, Buffalo Soldier, is entirely absent from the film. 3 years after the release of Confrontation, Rita Marley founded the Bob Marley Foundation, an organization dedicated to fighting poverty across Jamaica. This is also absent from the film.